morning, everyone, and welcome. Let me ask you a question. Where is your consciousness and mindset today? When I'm feeling down and blue, I found a trick that I'll share with you. I can choose a better way with every little thought I think. If I wake up a bad attitude, I fill my mind with gratitude. I give thanks for everything with every little thought I think. I can choose to be happy, choose to be free. Moment by moment, it's all up to me. 'Cause what I think about, I bring about. That's the way it is, and there's no doubt. Day by day, I pave the way with every little thought I think. What you thinking? 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 What you're thinking? When I'm feeling down and blue, I found a trick that I'll share with you. I can choose a better way with every little thought I think. If I wake up in a bad attitude, I fill my mind with gratitude. I give thanks for everything with every little thought I think. I can choose to be happy, choose to be free. Moment by moment, it's all up to me. 'Cause what I think about, that's the way it is, and there's no doubt. Day by day, I pave the way with every little thought I think. Day by day, I pave the way with every little thought I think. Day by day, I pave the way with every little thought I think. What you thinking? 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 What you're thinking?
Good morning and welcome as always. My name is Reverend Richard Pacheco, also known as Rev Rich, and I am so grateful for you to be here and to be with us for the next 45 minutes to an hour in our Sunday celebration as we continue our four-part series as we equate the unity journey, especially what I've experienced, to what the Karate Kid did in his movies, or as known as The Hero's Journey by Joseph Campbell. And what's important about it is actually understanding. And again, sometimes we're visual people. By watching a movie and we understand his journey, we begin to see how even our own lives are part of this hero's journey. So we've talked about Karate Kid 1, 2. Today we're going to introduce Karate Kid 3, where a lot of people think that this is the final Karate Kid, but it's not. There's actually one more, and we'll talk about that later. But with that being said, as always, I am truly grateful for you being here, as I said. And connect with us. Go to weesc.org. And you can go to our Contact Us page and connect with us in any way, whether it's questions, prayer requests, so forth and so on. Again, we are working to make this a lot better as I await certain news that, we can move forward with certain things. But for right now, connect with us that way. If you wish to give, you can do so on that website as well. And later on, you will have a chance to do that through our either a QR code or going to the website. And as always, while we're sitting here, we're talking and we're getting ready for this, I hope that you already shared this out as well as gave us a like, that thumbs up, subscribed, and hit that bell so you know when we drop a video. And again, we continue to grow, as I am grateful that a lot of things are opening up, and a lot of gifts are coming in. So first thing I want to do before anything else is, because of my busy schedule, I really haven't had a chance to thank this gentleman. I'll be doing so on my social media as well, but he usually watches our service. So, I want to give a special thanks to Tom Harrington, who not only held on to a gift that he had for us for our anniversary party back on December 4th, which you can see the picture here as well. But he also did me a favor by creating the logo for the Unity Urban Ministerial Schools 2002 second annual family reunion, where they nickname it, again, because our school is in Detroit, Motown Records is there. It is called the Love Train, and our focus is going to be the power of love in this convention, as well as other things. And of course, Tom Harrington went up and beyond with the logo, and we are so grateful for him for doing this. And if you happen to be on my personal social media, you will see the pictures on there as well, and you can see a small representation here on the video. Second thing is, of course, I'm being interviewed tonight by Reverend Reg. She was a person who interviewed me and my daughter a number of months ago from the Philippines. They are having a Harvest Convention, have asked me to speak on consistency and other matters on that. So I'm truly grateful for that. I will post more information if you guys want to check it out or take part in the convention. There's a lot of different luminaries. Many of us know each other through the University of Metaphysics. So it'll be a very metaphysical event. And as also this week happens to be the Eastern Region Convention, which I will be attending virtually. Of course, it is a virtual convention. So I am excited to learn everything I can learn this week, as well as bring it to this online presence and, of course, give it and share it with you. So with that being said, let's go ahead and open up in our prayer. So let's go ahead and just close our eyes and breathe into this moment, knowing that it is in this oneness that we come together. We know we are divinely guided to be here, whether it is live on Sunday or later on in the week, to join in with an open heart and open mind to learn from the lessons that we receive. I share my gratitude out with everyone who joins me, as well as all the things that I learn on this journey. And I am also grateful to be a part of your lives, and I am so grateful for you to be a part of my life as we continue on this journey together. As always, we know that we are divinely guided in everything we do in our lives when we are willing and able to open ourselves up to this time and this place, when we can separate ourselves from the outer world and go deep within and know that we are not lacking for anything, for it all is inside of us, but we need to make sure that we do the work to do that. And we know we're on that path correctly, because not only is that work important for ourselves, but it's important for the light that we shine on others. And we're grateful for that as well. And we know that this is all happening around us because we say it is, and so we let it be, as it expresses into the world with great gratitude and love. And we affirm this with a Somo Tebi, Ashe, Ashe, Amen. And with that, let us move.
But I stand tall. final hold of me. So wide open, so amazing, it takes my breath away when it occurs to me. In a world where so many feel lost, in a world where so many feel lost, in a world where so many feel lost, I know God. I know God.
Episode. And let's take time now together as we heard the song I Know God to remind ourselves of that which is within ourselves. So let us begin with our daily word for today. And the daily word for today is kindness, which goes so well with our lesson today. Our affirmation for today is kindness is the language of my heart. And our affirmative prayer is, I set the intention today to give from my heart, to show compassion and kindness to everyone I meet. I begin by being kind to myself. I take time for spiritual self-care and prioritize good nutrition, relaxation, and exercise. I am gentle with myself when I come up short, filling my self-talk with words of affirmation and compassion. Being kind to myself makes being kind to others easy and natural. I am patient and understanding, and I seek harmony and accord in my relationship. I let the small irritations go, remaining calm and pleasant. I look for ways to lighten the load of others and don't hesitate to offer a helping hand. My kindness helps create the kingdom of heaven on earth. And our Bible verse for today comes from Matthew 25:35, and it's, for I was hungry and you gave me food. I was thirsty and you gave me something to drink. I was a stranger and you welcomed me. And let us just take a breath into this moment. And if you feel so moved, go ahead and close your eyes, knowing that one line that says, first, I must be kind to myself. And we realize that the divinity that is within ourselves, the God within, the Christ consciousness, directs us in ways of knowing who we truly are. We release the outer world, knowing that it can only come from their perspective. But our perspective must come from that point of divinity within ourselves, knowing that we are good. We allow the outer voices to help us self-sabotage, for only we can make a decision for ourselves. In forgiveness, we allow the hurts of before to be released and know that we can only live for this moment and forward. We no longer hold on to the anxiety of tomorrow, worried about what's going to happen, because we know that if we continue on a path focused on the divinity, our divine mind, our divine order flowing in and through us, all will unfold as it should. We tap into faith, knowing that what we already see and what is already helping is already done. We move in strength even when outer appearances are no longer there. And we continue to love, because we must first love ourselves so that we can love our neighbors. And it is in this power of love that we come from a place that's divine. And let's take a moment just to breathe in for ourselves in the silence and listen for that small, still voice to guide us on this hero's journey. As we return to this time and place, we allow that small, still voice to guide us. And we know to know God is to know ourselves, to know our true selves, the true image and expression of who we are, not tainted by outer visions, not tainted by the voices of others, but by that inner voice that allows us and guides us in a way that serves us in every way, because it is in serving ourselves that we can serve others from a full cup. And so it is, and we are so grateful. And we affirm this with an amen, and we let it be. Open your eyes when you are so moved, and sit in this gratitude for a little bit as we move on to our lesson for today. All right, and I hope you got something from our meditation today as well, as we remind ourselves we are good, because today's lesson reminds me a lot of the prodigal son and that journey in itself. So let's recap. So we've done Karate Kid 1 and Karate Kid 2. Now, most of the questions I've gotten from other people are like, okay, so I've heard you talk about specifics. I've heard you talk about, things going on in the movie and stuff, but how did this really work when we talk about the Unity journey? Now, I can only speak for my own journey, but I remember I was looking for something, kind of like Daniel-san did. He came to a new place. I'm in a new place. I knew nothing of Pennsylvania, as I was born and raised in New York City, transplanted to New Jersey originally for a job I was following, and then finally out to Pennsylvania following that same job. And here I was in Pennsylvania looking for something. I felt that even though I was still participating in a lot of the things I did while I was in New York and New Jersey, that I wanted to be able to do things out here. And one of the things I was missing was a spiritual home or a spiritual background, because I had kind of left religion behind. And I came and found Unity through a message I received in business training. And I was so grateful for that. And coming into Unity, we were kind of broken, kind of looking for something. So whether you came because you were attending another church that may not have agreed with your ideals, maybe you left the church because your beliefs were no longer in line with them. Maybe there was a part of you that heard of the healing properties and the healing practices of Unity. My case was the prosperity practices and healing that lack mentality in me. And I found Unity, and I was grateful to find Reverend Diane Sickler, who happened to be the senior minister. And that began my journey. So when we equate Karate Kid 1, we know that Daniel-san went through some trials and tribulations, same as we've done. He found a source of information. So for us was finding that inner guidance, that inner peace within ourselves to move forward. We then moved into a place of conflict as we began the practices. Daniel-san started to learn karate from Mr. Miyagi. We started to learn principles like the 5 principles of unity. We started to learn the 12 powers in unity. We started to learn affirmations and denials. We started to learn about affirmative prayer. We started to learn about all these things that in our mind somehow was not supposed to work, but was working. So like Karate Kid, when he was told to wax on, wax off, paint the fence, paint the house, sand the floor, and turned out that each one of those practices was actually teaching him something. And at the same time, we learned different things. And at the end, of course, we know he wins the tournament when he doubted himself. And even at the end where he almost lost the tournament because something cheated him. And isn't that something that we have gone through? You know, we look at the story of Jesus as the master teacher when he goes through his temptations. He's tempted because he's hungry. He's tempted because maybe he was doubting himself and he needed to hear about fame. Or his belief in God the Father, as it's taught in the Bible, that that person or that belief wasn't there for him. And each time he put it behind him. And it was the same thing here where he went to a tournament. he was cheated. It was those thoughts in his head that were cheating him. But in the case of Karate Kid, we know it was a physical cheating. Ends up in the back. Everybody's like, he can't compete. And he said, look, maybe I have nothing to prove to them, but I need to prove to me that it works. And I will tell you that many people, even ministers, have said that they've had to take a step back and reprove the principles to themselves because they fall into that doubt. So, of course, in Karate Kid 1, Daniel-san goes, wins the tournament. So he's proven to himself that these principles work. And we've proven to ourselves that these principles work. And we now travel into the world because we're no longer safe in the sanctuaries of our unity churches or any of our New Thought churches. We have to go out into the world with these same principles. We now face people who think that our principles don't work or doubt us because they'd rather go by their perspective than learn who we truly are. You know, I don't know how many times that I may apologize or I'll say something I believe and people will just put me down because their beliefs say it's wrong. So obviously they have to be right. And it took me a long time not to take that personal anymore. So here we have Daniel-san in Karate Kid 2, who now is taken to Japan, Okinawa to be exact, because Mr. Miyagi's father's dying. So he's taken into a whole new environment, a whole new journey. And of course, his dragon, so to say, as in the hero's journey, happens to be Chozen, who has a twisted perspective of what honor is in Japan. You have Mr. Miyagi on the other side dealing with his own. But Mr. Miyagi's moving in a place of the observer. See, he, in most times, even though he may feel emotions, he takes the point of no right or wrong, but just is. This is what's going on. I have somebody challenging me because of something that happened in my past, and he can't get it through his head that it's already done. And this is where we got that line that a person living without forgiveness in their heart is living a worse fate than death. And I'm paraphrasing a little bit there. And forgiveness takes forefront there because by the end, you see that Daniel had to go through all these trials and tribulations now in a live environment. Just like we go out and we try to use these principles in our lives, we try to be a person of forgiveness while people are still pointing fingers at us. We try to be the light for someone else and say we're coming from the power of love, not so much the emotion of love, but a power of love that says that every human being is good no matter what they are doing or what we perceive as doing wrong to us. We've learned to take radical responsibility when we go out and know that even though we want to accuse a person of something, that we look in the mirror and say, what part did I play? Because I have to take the power of responsibility for myself. And we do that, and we know that we say that the master teachers always said that the truth will set us free. And I always say it will piss us off at first, and it does, because it challenges us to know who we truly are. Such as in Karate Kid 2, where Daniel-san and Mr. Miyagi face the point at the end where there is this hurricane coming through. Mr. Miyagi saves Chozen, who thinks that Mr. Miyagi's there to beat him up, more or less, and finds out Mr. Miyagi's there to save his life. And in that moment, he finds forgiveness in his heart. But Chozen, on the other hand, continues with this twisted notion, this socialized and popularized revenge factor of what he called honor, and could not find forgiveness, which ended up with a battle at the end between him and Daniel-san. And even though, as Mr. Miyagi tells him, this is not for a trophy anymore, it's not for accolades, this is now life or death. You're going to fight for life or death. And Daniel-san accepted. Isn't that the same thing we go through? When we get to that point in our lives where we say, if I'm practicing these principles and I have these thoughts, this chemicalization, this crucifixion that's happening in my life right now, no matter how down I feel, that if I can tap into these principles and know where the source of my divinity comes from, that I have no fear to walk into that battle. And when I come out on the other side, I have proven to myself of all things that these principles are not only in the halls of unity, but that these principles work in the halls of my life. And in turn of my teaching, I can see the examples through my children, through my wife, through my friends who truly call themselves friends, and see that now my wife and my friends can become my teachers. My children become my teachers. And we take this hero's journey together, knowing that we are never alone, not just because of the divinity within ourselves, but because we know that there's someone there to give us that truth, no matter how much it may piss us off, to help us grow further, which now moves us into Karate Kid Part 3. Because just like every other Karate Kid movie, we start off with a montage which began long ago. So we have Mr. Miyagi and Daniel-san moving back from Okinawa, or coming back from Okinawa, I should say. And now the trials and tribulations have happened. And we know that when we think life is flying forward and everything is great, there's still a part of us that's waiting for the how do they say, the next shoe to drop. So in the movie, Mr. Miyagi walks in and finds out he lost his job because the building was sold. So he's no longer has a job. Okay, Daniel-san is there, and Mr. Miyagi starts talking about, how he had a dream of a bonsai shop. He had all this stuff, but there's no money because he ended up spending money helping the house in Japan and all that, so the money was limited. Daniel-san tries to help him by saying, hey, I've got money, let's get you a bonsai shop. And of course, Mr. Miyagi doesn't want the help. We've all been there. It's hard for me to ask for help. Then the movie flips over to Kreese. Now, we remember that Sensei Kreese was back in Karate Kid Part 1, was defeated in the tournament, of course, and he was pissed off. He began Karate Kid Part 2 by humiliating Johnny for taking a second place win, and then was humiliated by Mr. Miyagi when Mr. Miyagi defended Johnny. So, of course, if you think of, from a metaphysical point of view, that people in our biblical studies represent thoughts, John Kreese is that lingering thought, that unforgiving thought within ourselves that's just waiting for a chance to jump out and blame somebody and point fingers and, really make it that we have no responsibility for what happened. So in the movie, of course, John Kreese goes out and he's finding help. He's looking for those other thoughts in his head to help arrange revenge. And here comes Terry Silver. Now, again, I implore you that if you're interested in all the history of these movies, you need to watch Cobra Kai, because they take you back to give you all the backstories they didn't give you in the 3 Karate Kids. But either way, he sees Terry Silver. Terry Silver matches this plan. Well, I know how I'm going to hurt Mr. Miyagi through the kid. I'm going to do all these things. And tell me that you haven't sat in your head, one day and been, oh, well, this person hurt me. So if I do this and if I say this, I'm going to hurt him back. And, we're using energy in places we don't need to. It took me a long time to get to a place where that was no longer a need for me. And is it hard? Yes, sometimes it is. But it's easy when I no longer have control of my past. I can take responsibility for it. I can learn from it. But I can only do what happens now and into the future. So with that, we continue to move on and we see this journey. Danny goes and says, I'm going with my intuition, takes his money, gets a shop from Mr. Miyagi. They start a bonsai shop. To the point where Mr. Miyagi's touched. He signs Danny as a partner. So things are going great again. And we see that Terry Silvers is hatching a plan to, he brings in what they call the bad boy of karate. And he aligns him with 2 troublemakers as well, because now they want to go against Danny. So we're trying to figure out how that happens. Well, Daniel-san now comes in with a piece of paper. This is where the ego comes in, because he now says, I got a piece of paper that says, or a letter from the All Valley Tournament saying that, well, for me to defend my championship, for me to defend that thought that I am the greatest, for me to defend that thought of I am right, all I got to do is fight one fight. And Mr. Miyagi's there. and tells him, why do you want to defend? I teach, he teaches karate for the point of self-defense or whatever, and he's always going to train him. But it's not for the sense of a trophy. Long ago, and people who know me from a young age or have known my history knows that I've been in many tournaments, and I have not one trophy to show for it. I've given them all away. Because I used to take that message to heart, that the martial arts I learned was for me. And there was even a period in my life recently where I allowed my negative thinking to stop me from regaining that teaching ability, because I was so worried about what was outside of me that I forgot that the martial arts and the spirits of it was in here. And it's the same thing with being good. I forget that I'm good in here. Sometimes, we forget to look at the people around us and see the good in them. Well, either way, the movie continues to go from there. So the hero's journey here is now you have two consciousnesses being manipulated by thoughts. Because throughout the whole thing, Daniel didn't understand why Mr. Miyagi didn't want to sign a paper for him to fight in the tournament. But now he's got 3 bullies, so to say, and Terry Silvers as well, manipulating his thoughts to do that. So we know that the bullies are trying to get him to sign the application for the tournament. And they do it by all kinds of stealing stuff and all that. And isn't that what our thoughts do to us? Our thoughts enter our mind and we immediately think of things that we're missing out on, we're lacking of, and all that. And that begins to take precedence to the point that we start pushing people away. We start pushing things away because we think that we're missing out on something or we're lacking something. So in the chance of Daniel-san, he starts seeing himself, and these thoughts keep coming in. He finally signs because of fear. Now, of course, in the movie, it's a lot worse than that because, he's climbing a mountain and he's about to drop, and he signs it. And he finally comes to Mr. Miyagi and says, Mr. Miyagi, will you train me? And Mr. Miyagi always says, I will always train you, but not for a tournament. And to me, I saw that as a guide inside of us saying, we will always do these practices. We will always be there for you, but not for the egocentric self. We do this to grow that inner divinity, to find that true self of you. So when I say that this story reminds me of the prodigal son, is because both of these people had to come back onto themselves. And we know that in the part of the story where the son goes out and he's realizing that him taking the money from his father's inheritance, going out, partying, doing whatever, and when all the money was gone, he said to himself that even the servants were eating better than he was at that time, because he was sharing the food with the slop that he was feeding the pigs and the animals out there. So he chooses to return back to the Father. But first, the statement is he came onto himself. I always say that in my own life, I had to come into myself to understand where I am today. So as Daniel-san is now training with Terry Silver, he's got this mentality going on where Terry Silver is going to make him the greatest champion. And that's all that's in his head, the ego that's telling me I'm right. And if I continue to follow who I am and how I'm right, no matter how many messages are telling me that the things I've done or whatever is wrong, that I'm pushing my own self away, that I'm doing this, I'm pushing people I love away, I'm not talking, I'm distancing myself from things. And that's going on. And to me, that's what Terry Silver represents. You remember the famous line, if a man can't walk, he can't fight. If a man can't breathe, he can't fight. If a man can't see, he can't fight. And he teaches this and he drills this. And these are the thoughts that run in our head that constantly drill, constantly that. And it goes into our head. Maybe some of you are thinking that right now, going, this man is speaking a little too fast for me. But when we open ourselves to listen, Daniel-san is pushed into a situation where he ends up hurting somebody for no reason. And he had to come to himself to say, wait a minute, I became somebody I never knew. I became something I never wanted to become. And this is where chemicalization comes in. Because he goes back to Mr. Miyagi, admits this to Mr. Miyagi. He goes to the dojo to Terry Silver. We go into ourselves to tell our thoughts, no more. And our thoughts say, we got this now. And Mr. Miyagi, how do I say, Daniel's source in this show, or his father figure, and for us, our divinity within us, steps in to defend him. So as we're going through this chemicalization, we get to that battle of thoughts versus our divine intention, our divine order, that within ourselves that are telling us how to proceed, but our thoughts that are still lingering are trying to pull us back into that comfort zone. And we know the story of the dog on the nail, because that comfort zone can hurt us constantly, but we don't allow it to push us forward. So of course, Daniel-san is in the tournament. You know, his thoughts are torture him, bring him back, torture him, bring him back. And it's a fight back and forth until sudden death. So here it is where I always say, when we want to change our lives, it takes one thing. It's a decision. It's a decision to say that today we make our decision to move forward. That came to me recently as well, where I had to do exactly the same thing and say I need a decision, because you know what? I was so drowning in me being right and saying that the way I had actions, the way things were going for me was the right way to go. But I realized that I was letting part of me die. There's a part of my illumination that needed to be outside. I came to this place to be able to light people up and let them know and give them permission to be the best they can be. But if I was letting the best in me die, the people around me saw that. And those that cared said the truth. And that truth woke me up. Step by step, but it woke me up. And it brought me to the realization of seeing that hero's journey, because I had to face my own dragons. Well, we know that in the movie, Daniel-san, in the middle of a tournament, goes into kata. And for those that don't know what kata is, in most fighting styles, it's a prearranged fight. So if you were imagining being in a fight, these are moves you would do in that fight. And you would practice them over and over again to be part of whatever. And isn't that what we do here? We practice prayer, we practice meditation, we practice our 12 powers, we engage our 5 principles on a daily basis, to the point that when we talk about 5 principles, we use the God is, I am. I think, I pray, I live it, because it's a shorter way to remind ourselves what gifts we already have. And we fight to the end. And because he tapped into that source of karate for himself, he ends up defeating the bad boy of karate, as they say. And the same thing here is when we tap into our source, take that action and truly live what we believe and what we know is true within ourselves with a capital T, we move through the battles of our mind. I always said if I wrote a book, I couldn't write a book about drug addiction. I couldn't write a book about abuse. I couldn't write a book about anything, because most of the wars that went on in my life were in my own head. Because I allowed the voices outside of me to convince me to be scared, to doubt, to do that. And it wasn't until I tapped into that source that allowed me to be who I want to be. How many of you have gone through the same thing or going through the same thing right now? That you're doubting the best you can be, that you're doubting the moves you're doing. Because it's easier to push things away. It's easier to separate yourself from that which makes you feel a little bit uncomfortable because you're growing, than it is to embrace the mass consciousness, no matter how much it makes you feel small. And none of you are small. All of you are great. And I appreciate you for being in my life. And that's what's important. We all have the decision to make that we can change, that we can become better, not just for ourselves, but for the people that we reflect around us. And change doesn't happen overnight. The decision happens instantaneously. But change happens over time. And the only constants we have is change. So I hope you enjoyed the last 3. Next week we talk about the next Karate Kid, which brings in Mr. Miyagi and brings the young lady in as the main character. And we'll talk more about that next week. But most importantly, remember that if we want to succeed, if we want more, we need to give more. So don't be afraid of who you are or what you can be. Use that energy to put it into faith, strength, decision, wisdom, love, and all the other innate powers we have to become the best person you can be. So with that, namaste episode.
If you want more love, give love. If you want more joy, give joy. If you want more peace, give peace. If you want more, give. If you want more, give. If you want more money, give your money. If you want more time, give your time. If you want more friends, be a friend. If you want more, give. If you want more, give. When you give, you receive. It's simple as that. There's no effort, no struggle, just a simple fact. If you want to change, see change, be the change. If you want to have more truth, tell your truth. If you want more gratitude, give thanks. If you want more, give. If you want more, give. When you give, you receive. That's simple as that. There's no effort, no struggle. It's just a simple fact. It's just a simple fact. Just a simple fact, Jack. If you want more love, give love. If you want more joy, give joy. If you want more peace, give peace. If you want more, give. 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 If you want more, got to give. If you want more, give. If you want more, give.
So I hope you got a lot from our lesson today. Again, we are following the hero's journey. We've done Karate Kid 1, 2, 3. Next week, as I said, we're moving into the next Karate Kid, which happens to let Daniel-san leave the journey. And now we focus on Mr. Miyagi and a new character. So I truly hope you got something from it. And the song itself, More Give, you've heard this many a times. You know, if you want more love, give. If you want more money, give, and give from a place of abundance and not from a place of lack. And a lot of what you heard in today's lesson comes from that fear of lack and missing out. And it's when we rise above that that everything gets delivered to us. So at this point, as always, we give you a chance to be, or an opportunity to practice giving And as always, our information is down at the bottom if you wish to help us. If you're actually giving to another spiritual center right now, that's okay too. We want to keep this work going. And we want more people to understand these principles that they can incorporate in their lives. And as I always say, and I got this from one of my teachers, is the saying that says, may the God of your understanding forever inspire you. And that's, I hope, the message that myself and all these luminaries out there are bringing to you. So with that, if you do have your gift in hand, or you gave it already, or you just want to virtually hold it in your hand close to your heart and say, divine love as me, through me, blesses and multiplies all that I have, all that I give, all that I circulate, and the knowledge of all that I am. And so it is. And we know that as the money comes in or goes out, that it's doing the work it's supposed to do and help grow the communities that are out there. And we are so grateful. So we thank you, and thank you, even if it is a gift of your time here today. And I hope to see you guys next Sunday. But let us end together with the prayer of protection. And the light of God surrounds me. The love of God enfolds me. The power of God protects me. The presence of God watches over me. And wherever we are, God is, and all is well. And we are so grateful. And we know that wherever God is, we are, because we are that expression. And as the song I once heard said, we may be the only Jesus that anybody may know. So go out and be that light. I love you. Nothing you can do about it. I am grateful. I bid you namaste, and I will see you next.